Good morning everyone, Briario here for Unveiling, the first surprise I anticipated in the previous channel update. It's a bit late because it took its time to get here and you can imagine what I'm going to speak about thanks to Alicia and Isara here. The Valkyria Chronicles 2 World Artworks, translated and published in the US by Udon Entertainment. Before I begin describing what's in the book, be advised, it will be spoiler heavy, so if you haven't played the game, shame on you, you might want to play it before watching this video. As with the art book for the first Valkyria Chronicles, the World Artworks is very similar to its Japanese counterpart, and quickly browsing through it reveals that kanjis have been left all over the place, including screenshots. Now, if we take a look at the Japanese edition, we see that it too featured double languages for titles and sections. Udon simply swapped the two. The screenshots are a minor bump in this art book, and there are only extremely minor differences between the two editions. The Japanese book has a jacket and the paper feels softer. The American book has a stiffer cover with no jacket, but it has two flaps inside that feature the same artwork as the original. Page count is the same as contents are, so you aren't missing anything. The 300 plus pages volume holds almost everything you might want from an art book. Detailed descriptions of all primary and secondary characters, of the weapons, the settings, early sketches, interviews with the staff and a glossary. It might be missing detailed 3D data, but for me design concepts by Raita Onju, the character and mecha designer, are alone worth the price of this book, which is, by the way, $50 US. Valkyria Chronicles 2's design has been influenced by the style used in the anime of the first game, and this is shown by its more mainstream style, but taking a look at the concepts for the primary characters, it's impossible not to recognize Raita's handiwork. Some other characters haven't been designed by him, and it's clearly shown in their pages, but the quality of the material is still top-notch, and besides, even the first Valkyria Chronicles made Raita's design softer. The first section is dedicated to characters. Primary characters like Evan and Cosette are given a large amount of pages with full bio, including game potential and facial expressions. A lot of pages are dedicated to in-game events, and then we arrive at the sketches. This structure is repeated for characters relevant in the main story, and I must say that I would have preferred more sketches than recaps of what happens in the game. But I will never get tired of saying this. Sketches are incredible, especially for the girls like Aliasse and Juliana, who retain more of the original Raita design, more than anyone else. Such pages are dotted with boxes detailing the design process and thoughts of what brought the characters to life, so they are immensely interesting. Secondary character and sadly most rebel characters are given just 1 or 2 pages in this section, with their early sketches holding at most 1 page in the last page of the book, or not being present at all. And probably this is the book's biggest fault. I mean, you don't need to give all of them 10 pages full of sketches, but here I get back to the game recaps found earlier. They could have been skipped to give all characters more sketches, but if you haven't understood, I'm a bit fixated on them, so your mileage can vary. The second part is all about heavy metal, tanks. Here the pages only go for a short description of the various tanks found in the game, with specs, blueprints and color variations if any, and if you like this sort of thing you'll be a bit disappointed because the book won't go too much into detail about them, though their number is quite high as both loyalist and rebel tanks are represented, plus there are full lists for turrets, armor and gadgets, along with 3D images on the smallest editions. But if tanks are not heavy enough for you, the subsection with airships and battleships will drive you crazy. Again, they aren't as detailed as the characters, but there are all sorts of details, and these pages are about units that you can hardly get a look at during the game, and the attention to detail on these huge machines is astounding, including searchlights, propellers, and so on. The artificial Valkyrie only get few pages, but I think they are one of the less interesting aspects of the game's design, so to me it's not a big deal. Then there is a collection of all firearms present in the game, from scout rifles to machine guns to mauls, and there is nothing much to say here, especially in the opening pages where rifles are given a lot of attention down to the tiniest detail. So let's just take a look at them while I browse through these pages. After infantry weapons come uniforms, and to me this is the least interesting part, especially when rebel forces are shown. I find the design of the rebel combat uniforms completely absurd, much more absurd than imperial uniforms in the first Valkyria Chronicles, but here you can see in detail how all units classes dress in the game. These drawings are well sized for basic classes and a bit on the small size for advanced branches, but they are still worth more than one look. Following personnel details are a series of miscellaneous entries including medals, flags, signatures and even Gallian's tank labeling system, showing off the great detailed work this game has undergone. Closing this section is a single page on a game present on the official Japanese website of the game. The characters here could don these exclusive outfits, and the brief introduction to this page points out that all girls have slender figures, if you catch their drift. The next section is about the setting of the game. It starts off with a general recap of Valkyria Chronicles 2's story and then moves to the actual locations, starting off with an extremely detailed view of the Lanciol Academy grounds, front gates, various classrooms, private rooms and so on. This part is extremely detailed and it won't disappoint anyone, as neither will the other locations. As the settings are less influential than the Academy, they have received less pages, but they go into as much detail as possible nonetheless. Cutscene storyboards got their fair number of pages as well, and they have been thoroughly translated. Font size here is a bit small, but perfectly readable. All pages here have the storyboard on the other part, with the completed artworks on the other side. Just like sketches, I find storyboards extremely interesting, and you might have guessed that I would have enjoyed bigger storyboards more, but I'm very glad they are present, even in this small scale. Almost at the end, and here are the early designs, which cover everything already saw in the book, from characters to locations to uniforms and banners. Now, I would have preferred having early sketches included with each characters or locations section, but I guess that, especially for secondary and tertiary characters, this arrangement saved space and, well, there is still a lot of material to gaze upon. Strangely enough, I find that uniforms are the most interesting part of this section, especially rebel uniforms that, though they already had silly helmets in the early design phase, they looked a bit less baroque than in the final version of Valkyria Chronicles 2. Finally, we move on to the extras. The introductory splash page is a bit misleading as it is the smallest of all. Well, anyway, here you'll find an interview with Shuntaro Tanaka and Shinji Motoyama, the two producers of the game. It's an interesting read, and there are a lot of side notes explaining contraptions or concepts that might be unknown. Following the interview, there is a brief glossary encompassing both games. And that's it, Valkyria Chronicles 2 World Artworks. Why haven't you bought it yet? Really, it deserves every buck it costs, and online retailers will surely have it at less of its MSRP, making the purchase palatable to non-American buyers as well. I'd also like to add to buy both games. Maybe this will prompt Sega to import the third game. Come on Sega, make everyone happy. But while we all pray for Valkyria Chronicles 3 to happen, this art book is a must-buy for anyone remotely interested in the game. Buy it! Briareos Kerensky, over and out.